use that word.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was rejected.
Yeah. And everybody would understand the cherem. You can say there's been how you have a second of the second member is actually killed, right? Or actually it's for Rabbi Eliezer. We talk about not about an ordinary person, talk about a big deal of gadol.
Right.
So we've never been able to understand
That
that.
ceremony, they reveal that they're vampires and cannibals.
What is vampires and cannibals?
They take that ceremony, they're drinking his blood.
Oh, well, let's forget about it. We're past that. We're way past that already.
Because he is the-
Yeah, we don't. Oh, because I know. Look, so you're gonna get rejected if you don't watch out. We'll reject you right out of this out of the room. No, yeah, that's right. They're using the wrong term.
What can you do?
Okay, I see you're using the what you use the you use Safari. No, because I have the Kahati on my phone.
Yeah,
But it's in, I only have the Hebrew. I wonder if the Kahati is
in English online. Yeah, I put the Parsha on the screen if you want to go to a passage.
Oh, still got that later. Yeah, okay. Anyway, good morning. It was Baruch Hashem, the opportunity to also learn some Hatzvi-Bais. It's now in the 3 weeks, something that the Rebbe put great emphasis every year. The Rebbe would mention how important. How do we hide thumbnail? How do we do this? I want to go back to what I didn't really get time to do. I never got to it last week. It was the Likutei Torah of last week. And so I wanted to go back to that, if I may, but I'm going to give a little preface, a little a preview of Hasidus Chabad in general. Okay? And I've spoken about this in the past. Basically, everything that I say is not new, been said before, not mechadish anything. A lot of learning Torah is about having it sink in. So that means that you do it again and again. How do I get this to be big?
Which thing?
The Zoom, yeah.
You want to take away the screen?
I don't need this screen.
You don't have to do stop share.
Okay. Oh, okay. So Hasidus Chabad, interestingly, is very different. It's very unique. There's no other works of Hasidus, okay, that which is referred to as Hasidus, meaning the Baal Shem Tov revealed a window into a whole new part of Torah, right? The Pnimius of Torah. Again, it wasn't as if that he was the first, but he was the one who made it popular, right? And that's the famous words that he himself says, that he was instructed by the Neshama of Mashiach, in the Heichal of Mashiach, when he had an Aliyas on Neshama, the Neshama was elevated to the higher worlds. And Mashiach told, when he asked Mashiach, and the response, when will Mashiach come? And the response was, when the well springs of your teachings will be spread out into the world. So the Baal Shem Tov, he's the one, we reference the Baal Shem Tov as the one who began the popularity, so to speak, of disseminating the teachings of Hasidus. Then 2 generations later comes the Alter Rebbe, right? And the Alter Rebbe is expounding on the Hasidus of the Baal Shem Tov, right? And he's elaborating, probably to a degree that has not been done by any of the other Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov or the Talmidim of the Maggid, of whom the Alter Rebbe was a Talmud. He took it to a whole new level, okay? But not only in Kamus, the quantity, the mere, it was just like a flourishing, like the Maimer, every Shabbos, and the Maimer would be transcribed, and then they would be shared. And so this was something that was in itself unique. But then the form of the Chassidus, to the point that it actually acquired a designation. It's called Hasidus Chabad. Okay, And Hasidus Chabad is unique. There's no question that it's unique. You don't find it in any other books of Hasidus, of the other Talmidim or the Talmidim of the Talmidim, going back to the Baal Shem Tov. There are many, many books of Hasidus, but there's something that's distinct and unique to Hasidus Chabad. What is it? Most of Hasidus addresses in Yodim Shebelev, serving Hashem with the heart. Okay? So, what would the starting for the Baal Shem Tov and his Talmidim, they've stressed serving Hashem with the heart. Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, etc., etc. How do we serve Hashem with the mind? By learning Torah, right? Comes along the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says that in the context of Hasidus, right, there's also delving into the Hasidus on a different level of the mind. So the mind is not just that the mind is the way we serve Hashem by learning a Gemara, a blot of Gemara, right? Or mastering a Chelik and Shulchan Aruch. There's another activity that takes place in the mind. And that is learning Hasidus, right? But learning Hasidus in a very deep and an intellectual way. Okay? So this is unique now to the Alter Rebbe. A little overview. It doesn't hurt, right? Binny, you know all of this. You could be giving this speech yourself, but a little overview, right? Doesn't hurt. Now, the Alter Rebbe is best known for what book that he wrote?
Tanya.
The Tanya. So much so that he's referred to as the Baal HaTanya. Even when the Alter Rebbe is being referenced for something that he wrote in the Shulchan Aruch, which is not Chassidus, it's halacha, right? Even there, often the Alter Rebbe, depends by whom, but in different svarim, is referred to as the Baal HaTanya, or the Baal HaTanya v'ha Shulchan Aruch. But the common term for the Alter Rebbe is the Baal
I
HaTanya.
heard an interesting thing. Why sometimes Alter Rebbe is called Baal Tanya Shulchan Aruch, sometimes Baal Shulchan Aruch Tanya.
I don't know.
Because he actually wrote the Shulchan Aruch before he wrote the Tanya.
Yes.
But the Tanya was printed before the Shulchan Aruch was printed.
I've actually been mislagged them.
Yeah.
Besides Ripple's Samatera.
Who's written for it?
So have the mislagged them of the mislagged learned is Shulchan Aruch, but they don't seem to be the habit of learning it.
They don't, yeah, right. So, not necessarily. Well, today that's not the case.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying that the mislagged actually traditionally, actually they've been learning his Shulchan Aruch, but not necessarily his Tanya.
right. Now, if you look at the Sefer of Tanya itself,
Mhm.
so Tanya is basically a book that's compiled of 5 different books, right? The first 2 books, the first 53 chapters, was called the Sefer Shel Beinunim, right? That's that we consider that the main book of Tanya, right? When you reference Tanya, you're referencing something from there. That book of Tanya is actually more similar to the rest of Chassidus, where it actually addresses the Avodah Shebelev, serving Hashem, and the struggles that take place within the heart. Not exclusively, but it's about what we call Avodah, serving Hashem. This other mode of Hasidus Chabad, which was unique to the Alter Rebbe, right? This other mode of Hasidus Chabad is referred to by Chassidim, or even by the Rabbeim, the Frierdiker Rebbe certainly, as Haskolas HaChassidus, the abstract elements of Chassidus, which were unique to the Alter Rebbe. Now, if you look at the second book of Tanya, which is Shar HaYichud VaEmunah, right? The discussions there are about the abstract principles that deal primarily with creation, yesh ba'ayin, that the world, Hashem creates the world, but he creates it from nothing, right? And it delves into an intellectual discussion as to what are the implications of that, right? And it's all in order intellectual perspective of how there's nothing but Hashem. That's called Yechuda Ilo, Yechuda Tato. There's actually 2 ways of looking at it, but it's basically by delving in to something seemingly abstract, right? Creation, we have difficulty even, we say the word, but we don't really, in a direct way, actually relate to what that means, creation, something from nothing. And the reason is because we have no way in our brains to entertain the notion of nothingness, okay? It's nothingness is very difficult, right? As a matter of fact, to bring out this point, so my teacher, Rabbi Khan, in order to show how much we don't know what is nothing, right? He said, if somebody who comes to Cheder, a kid comes to Cheder, right? And he tells the kids, before the Rebbe walks in, and he's all excited, and he says, you can't believe what I saw. It was amazing. I saw something amazing. So, yeah, what did you see? I was walking to school, to Cheder, and there was a stone that was just hovering in the air. This is before, what do they call those things? No, those things that fly around. Drones before. Yeah. I saw a stone. What are the kids' response going to be? No. So it's impossible. It can't be. He says, I saw it with my own eyes. Okay, what are they going to do? Oh, whatever. It was hanging maybe on a string or something. Whatever. But they're not going to call him a sugar. They're going to call him you're exaggerating or you were hallucinating, whatever. You aren't really, not hallucinating. You saw something, but you didn't see the whole picture. Okay. He said, imagine, says Rabbi, the kid comes to Cheder, and this time he says, I saw something. What did you see? I saw nothing. Hello? Yeah, I'm telling you, I saw nothing. So what is that? Nothing. It's a nothing. What are they going to do? They say, I think you should better go back home and you forgot to take your pill or something, because you're having apparently some hallucinations, right? So in other words, there are things that are almost unimaginable, but they're still somewhat imaginable, right? When it comes to the notion of nothing, it's not even imaginable, right? You can't even say it. Anyway, but so here the Alter Rebbe delves into something emerging from a state of nothing, and it has implications. And the main implication is to understand Yichud Elah, Yichud Tatha, that when we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, ultimately what that means is there's nothing but Hashem. So you see a world with all kinds of wonderful things, right? And they all seem to have some kind of independent existence, and etc., etc., etc. Hashem Echad, right? So that's called Haskalah Chassidus. And the second book of Tanya delves most in Haskalah Chassidus, right? And this, I say, is unique. I don't think you find this in other sifri. The Mittler Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe's son, who took over the leadership of this new movement called Chassidus Chabad, right? He took it to a whole new level. So learning the Mittler Rebbe's Chassidus is actually very difficult, because it speaks in very, very abstract terms, right? And it analyzes things in the arena of the abstract, which takes a lot of it takes a certain training of the mind to even understand what's going on. Lahavdil, for example, one of the subjects that seem to be the hardest for students to master, right, is not necessarily chemistry or biology or whatever. It's math, right? So some people just have the mind for it, and some people don't. What's lacking is a certain maturity of thinking in the abstract, and that, believe me, that you could take that to the what's it called, to the limits when it comes to the chassidus of the Mittler Rebbe. As a matter of fact, the Mittler Rebbe had a chavrusa. His name was Rabbi Aaron Strasheller.
Oh, yes. I know
Rabbi Aaron Strasheller was very upset with the Mittler Rebbe, because he told the Mittler Rebbe, he said, you're losing the Chassidim. He said, you're speaking on levels that, what's it called, that they just cannot relate to it. It's like it's going way over the head, he's telling you, right? And the Mittler Rebbe ignored him. They were very, very close friends. They were said that growing up, I think they were Chavrusa and Cheder, whatever. They were Trei Rein Delay Mispardim, like it says in the Zohar, in reference to some of the sphere of Chachma and Bina, right? That they two friends that they cannot separate them, and yet there was a little falling out, because Rabbi Strasheller was upset with the Mittler Rebbe, because he felt that he took this idea of Chassidus Chabad, but specifically the Haskalah, the abstract teachings of Chassidus Chabad, and he took him to a place that he felt that it was going right over everybody's head. You're going to lose the Chassid, right? And Rabbi Sashel decided, you know what? If you're going to go your way, you go your way. I'm going to go my way. And he started his own, right?
He was the topmost student, actually,
Of the Alter Rebbe, absolutely. So what did he do to appeal to the Chassidim? So he put a lot of emphasis on Nigunim. There are Nigunim from Rabbi Sashel today, amazing, deep Nigunim.
And they're used by Chabad today.
They are, because what happened is that Rabbi Sashel was not Cherem either. He was shunned by the Chassidim. Right, because ultimately it was the Mittler Rebbe was the one who took over, and the Chassidim did ultimately stick with the Mittler Rebbe. Right, there's a story about, it was just mentioned in Hayoim Yoim of Rabbi Moshe Valenker. So I don't know if this was Rabbi Moshe Valenker and his brother or two sons of Rabbi Moshe Valenker, who when Rabbi Sashel started his own movement, so to speak. They went to see maybe this is a nice place to go, right? So it was a Shabbos or whatever, and he was, by the publisher, they say fearing Tish, or he was having a Fabring and whatever, and he spoke a short Torah, but then he started singing a Nigun, right? And then he got so deep into the Nigun, he jumped up on the table and he was singing, he was on the table. When they saw that, they said, this is not Chabad. I mean, today maybe. but he said, this did not seem to fit in with the culture that the Alter Rebbe had, so to speak, had cultivated, right? So the way the story is told is that they weren't able to say a reish. The Valenker brothers, they couldn't say a reish. So when their Baris Tashel got up the table, they start telling him, "Ayop von Tish, Ayop von Tish." That means get off the table, get off the table. This is not the derech that the Alter Rebbe showed us. Rabbi Sashel felt that this is the way that he was going to appeal to the Chassidim with excitement, right? And Nigunim and Lebedikite and so on and so forth, right? And they felt by the other Talmidim of the Magid, that was Takid or Derech. So you're just competing with the rest of them. But the Alter Rebbe established a whole new Derech. And he basically established a kind of a culture where the serving Hashem, because the serving Hashem with the understanding, with the deep intellectual understanding of abstract ideals such as creation, something from nothing, and what are the implications of that, and to be misbeinen in these things, it created a different kind of a culture, a more settled. It's not about what's the word, excitement and okay. So they left. They didn't stay with their Baris Tashel. They checked them out and they decided no, it's not for them. There was another chassid, Michael Apotzker also, who was a chassid of the Mittler Rebbe, and then he was later a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek. But he also would say, he didn't try to create an alternative Chassidus movement, but he was somewhat critical, he said, of the Mittler Rebbe. He said, when the Tate had gesagt Chassidus, when the Alter Rebbe said Chassidus, we was able to be miyashav, it was settled in our minds. He said, but what the Mittler Rebbe is saying, Chassidus, he says, that's even over my head, he would say, right? And he would elaborate and long memorim, right? When the Mittler Rebbe, they say the Mittler Rebbe, Chassidus was his life. They said if you get a cut, he wouldn't bleed blood; he would bleed Chassidus, right? When they were mentioning different perspective shidduchim for the Mittler Rebbe, they said, okay, let's ask the Mittler Rebbe. He should have some say, right? They were very already open-minded in those days, in the times of the Alter Rebbe, right? So they actually, so the Mittler Rebbe said that whoever is willing to get married first. Whoever is willing to get married first. Well, that was the Mitzvah. Rebbe was just like in a rush to get married. Like it's a mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah. How old was he? 14. He was 14. But then they asked the Mitzvah Rebbe, what, right? So the Mitzvah Rebbe said, I know that at my wedding, for sure the Alter Rebbe is going to say Achsidus. He's going to say Maimer. So whoever is willing to get married first, we'll hear the Maimer first, right? This was the Mitzvah Rebbe. Okay. So this is very unique. It's unique to Chassidus Chabad. It's absolutely 100% unique. This mode of study. And before we run out of time, I want to mention from last week's Likutei Torah. But before, I want to say that in the other Svarim of Chassidus, I don't think that we find anything similar. There's amazing things in other Svarim of Chassidus. As a matter of fact, whenever I get a chance and I always pick up and I always, just to educate myself. My son, Shlomi, who lives here, before he moved here, he lived in Ellenville. He was the rabbi of the shul in Ellenville. And in the shul in Ellenville, it was pretty much a dying shul, but because the Catskills Michal is a dying place. It's interesting, whatever. So when I think of the castles, I think of decay and mold and in the old places that in buildings that don't exist anymore, right? There's still a sign on the way to Ellenville, a big sign, the opening, announcing the opening of the Nevele, the big famous hotel, right? Grand opening. August 2020. it's still up there. No, or 2019 or something. I just saw it just like 2 weeks ago. I passed by. The sign is still there, but the whole building, the Nevele, literally, it's crumbling. Yeah. Anyway, there's another. No. They put it up and they had that. Yeah, but they never happened. But in any case, I pick up there's a lot of svarim. This show has a lot of svarim. So I ended up, I would go in the summer, and it's a quiet summer. I don't have much obligations, right? I was there by him first a couple of times in the summer, and I would just sit and pick up these farms. There's amazing farms. There's amazing things to learn from them, right? But you don't see that kind of chassidus of the haskol, what we call the haskola of chassidus. The only other place, by the way, where perhaps you can find this language is in the Derech HaChaim. From Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner. Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner wrote a Sefer Derech HaChaim. But it turns out that he wrote it as an alternative, right? So that the Talmid, he was a Talmud of the Gra, of the Vilna Gaon, right? Mm-hmm. And he's also the one who's credited of being the one who founded the whole yeshiva movement, right? I mean, yeshivas obviously always were, but he institutionalized it, so to speak. He made it that a yeshiva is an institution, and Bachim could come and they provide them with meals and provide them with a place to live, right? That became the institution of yeshivas, for which Chaim Volozhiner is credited to a great extent. But he was not a chassid. He was a brilliant person. He's the beginning of the whole Brisker Soloveitchik family dynasty, I could even say, right? So that's what the Brisker, the Soloveitchiks are known primarily for, is their brilliance in Torah and so on. So he wrote a sefer, right? And in the sefer, it's a little bit later on in the sefer, right? He writes very deep things, and some of it was to defend the Vilna Gaon's position. The Vilna Gaon did not write, but he was known to be a great Makubal. And there were some certain issues that were being debated, where the Chassidim and primarily the Alter Rebbe, they had a certain approach, and the Vilna Gaon had a different approach. And the Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner in Derech HaChaim, he writes, to defending, so to speak, the approach of the Vilna Gaon. It has to do also with very deep concepts, the concept of tzimtzum. It all goes back to the Arizal, who speaks about how from the Eibishter, the infinite, comes a world, right? Obviously, it's coming from the Eibishter. But what's the process? How do you go from the infinite to the finite, right? So there are other ways that Mekubalim dealt with that before the Arizal even. But the Arizal came up with this elaborate system of the tzimtzum, where the Or, the Eibishter is infinite Or. Now, Or is a metaphor. And the metaphor of Or, by the way, is that since it's a reflection of its source, and being that Hashem is infinite, so the Or is infinite. But from this Or has to come out the world, right? From Hashem comes out the world, but it comes out as an infinite. So there has to be what's called a tzimtzum in that Or, right? The be mitzamtzum there. Tzimtzum means to retract it. And then the Arizal goes to an elaborate discussion about how that tzimtzum takes place. It's two stages. There's the siluk, he first removes the Or. So now you end up with a total void, right? And that's called the first tzimtzum. And this is where the big debate took place, whether indeed that void was actually literally a void of Hashem, because Hashem actually removed himself, right? And then
Supposedly it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah, it is very much deeper than that, much deeper than that. But I'm just giving you just basics here, right? And then you have what's called Hamshachas Hakav, where he reintroduces a very limited ray of, again, using the metaphor of light. Okay, I'll mention, but even in the Derech HaChaim, nobody learns that part of the Derech HaChaim. Okay, they learn the beginning, where he speaks about the Maila of the Matatera and so on and so forth, right? And that's fundamental in all the literature yeshivas, right? I read an article recently, maybe it was a couple of years ago, where somebody from the Litvish Olam is bemoaning the fact that nobody will, when they get, I think it's Perik Vov or Perik Zayin, right? All of a sudden, nobody has any idea. And the reason they have no idea is because if they try to learn it, they wouldn't understand it. You give it a bacher that's been learning Chassidus or Hatzvi-Bais or Samach Vov or Deren or Rashab, he'll be able to explain it to the Bachim, the Litvish Bacher. the irony. But if they want to learn those parakim in the Derech HaChaim, call a Bacher from 770, right? Have him, invite him over to give a shir, and because he'll be able to explain to you, because he's already familiar with those terms, right? I myself, I learned the Derech HaChaim, and to say that I well enough to go to some big yeshiva in the literature world and give a shir, I don't know. They probably won't want to listen to me. But I definitely, I related to what he was writing, what he was saying, right? Anyway, from last week's Likutei Torah, I want to tell you something very interesting. Talking about this Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, right? The infinite light. We say about the shamas that when the neshamas go to Olam Haba, what is their schar? What is the reward for their avodah in this world? Is that now that their neshama is released from a body, right, and it's been refined, it's able to be nene from the ziv hashchina. It's able to benefit and get deep, great pleasure. The neshama gets great pleasure just from the light of Hashem, the Ziv Hashchina, the rays of the Shechina. You hear? That's Olam Haba, right? Says the Alter Rebbe, the Gemara says that the Yud Nivra Ha'olam. When Hashem created the world, He created it with the letter Yud, right? Says the Alter Rebbe, the Olam that the Gemara is referring to when it says Yud Nivra Ha'olam, it's talking about Olam Haba, the world to come. Why with a Yud? Because in order for the Neshama, what does the Yud represent? It's just a dot. Being that it's just a dot, it means it doesn't have any expression. It's not, there's no elaboration, there's no show over here. You hardly see it. It's just a dot, right? Says the Alter Rebbe, because the Or of Olam Haba, right, has to be a Or Mitzuntzum. It has to be very restricted. Why does it have to be very restricted? Because otherwise the neshamas, right, as holy as they may be, would not be able to benefit from that Or. So when we say that the neshamas, right, are benefiting from the ziv of the Shechina, right, it's a highly, highly reduced degree of Or, because otherwise it would be what's it called? It would not be possible for the neshamas to be able to relate in any way, and certainly not to have great great hana. So this is an interesting thing, by the way. This explains why the Alter Rebbe, he writes also Likutei Torah, but there's something the Alter Rebbe would sometimes say that the Chulnish Olam Haba, Chulnish Gan Eden Elyon, the Chulnish Gan Eden Tachtein what I really ultimately want, I don't want the reduced version. I want you yourself, the Rebbeinu Alei. This is something that the Alter Rebbe would commonly say, and it's referred to in the Kutei Torah in many places, right? But to finish, we are in a dark time now, right? So let me tell you the next thing that the Alter Rebbe says. The Alter Rebbe says, the Yud Nivra Ha'olam, that the Gemara says is Olam Habo. That's because there, the light is there, but Tzimtzum. It's very reduced. It's there, shines, but it's shining on a reduced level, right? What does it say about this world? Olam Chesed Yiboneh. Tzimtzum is Gevura. In order to take something infinite and to confine it, right, takes that amazing energy, right? That's a Gevura. That's Gevura. That's might. But this world, interestingly, what does it say? Olam Chesed Yiboneh. Chesed Yiboneh. This world is Chesed, says the Alter Rebbe. It's amazing what the Alter Rebbe says. He says, ultimately, he said, even though this world is a world full of choshech, it's full of darkness, right? But let's not forget what David HaMelech said. David HaMelech said, Yoshes choshech sisai. Where did Hashem put his most hidden element? And hidden, we mean hidden, right? Because they are the deepest secrets of godliness. They're in choshech. They're in darkness, right? Now, simply what that means is that we can't see them. When you're in a dark room, you don't see what's there. So the sisra, the greatest secrets of Hashem, are for relative to us. They're in a darkness because we cannot see them, right? Says the Alter Rebbe, but there's a deeper meaning to that. There are things that in this world seem to be very dark. They're choshech, right? They're very dark. They're very unfortunate. They're not happy things, right? They're things that we refer to metaphorically, but as darkness. We are now in the 3 weeks. What are these 3 weeks? These are 3 weeks of Parshas, right? We're building up to Tisha B'Av, the ultimate, right? The Nechama will come in Hashem afterwards when we say Nachamu Nachamu Ami. But up until the weeks now, these 3 weeks, they're called the 3 weeks of Parshas, of calamity, right? Darkness, says the Alter Rebbe. Olam Chesed, the ultimate Chesed, not restricted Chesed, not limited Chesed, not rays of the Shechina that the neshama gets this amazing pleasure from, right? No, the ultimate, the Hashem Himself, that's the ultimate Chesed. That, for the time being, will sometimes initially present itself as darkness. But in that darkness, as the Alter Rebbe, is the ultimate chesed of the Rebbe. So this is what the Alter Rebbe, what I didn't get to last week in the Kutei Torah from Parshas Pinchas, okay? Because I found it fascinating, because when I'm reading it, it seemed a little counterintuitive. We always think of Olam Habo as the revealed world. That's where godliness is revealed, right? And in this world, godliness is hidden. So you would think that's the world of Chesed, and this is the world of Gevura. But the Alter Rebbe turns it upside down. In order for godliness to be revealed, right, that has to be with Gevura. It can only be the result of it. The Tzimtzum has to be very much tamped down, as they say today, right? On your cell phone. But this world, right? It's not confined by the restriction of having to present itself in a manner that you could. No. It's the essence, and it's the ultimate chesed, because it's dafka here in this world, dealing with that darkness, that we actually end up connecting with the Eibishter himself. That's what I have to share with you today. And I think it's very appropriate in the 3 weeks. When it's the 3 weeks, maybe that's why I didn't get to it last week. Last week didn't start the 3 weeks. Oh, it did. It started on Thursday before. But in any case, we're now in the times of the 3 weeks. Let your heart not be troubled, because these are ultimately the Eibishter's chesed. He's not very open and revealed in these days, but he is his chesed. It's the ultimate chesed. The ultimate chesed. May we have the wisdom to see the chesed beyond the darkness. Don't get stuck in the darkness. See